You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 263. Should I reach out to my ex or not? Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. How are you doing today? I am sending you so much love. If you're having a hard day, I want to remind you it's going to get better. I promise you everything is going to be okay. And I will remind you that as many times as you need, okay? Now, today I wanted to talk about a question that I get asked a lot, everywhere, in my DMs, in my real life, in my program. But they ask, should I reach out to my ex or not? Typically, it's like following a situation. They're like, this happened. Should I reach out or not? And I'm just going to be super forward, open, and transparent and direct with you as I normally am. But there is no way that someone else, like myself or anyone else in the world, knows the answer to that question. The only person who truly knows the answer to that question is you. Of course, I have my opinion. I am an expert in breakups. I'm an expert in getting over your ex. I'm an expert in grief, heartbreak, and building a life that's bigger and better than the one that you had with your ex. So I have an opinion, of course, right? If you told me what happened in your situation, I could easily give you my opinion. Like, no, that's a terrible idea. Do not reach out to your ex. Or sure, why not? But I think anyone around you could also give you their opinion. And I'm sure you could poll everyone around you and you'd get a variety of answers. But the only answer that really matters is yours. Okay? So I wanted to come up with a super simple podcast episode that really outlines the questions that I walk through with my clients when they come to me with this question, because I want to teach them how to find the most aligned answers for them, for their unique situation, instead of them relying on me. Of course, I'm open to providing my opinion, but I only ever do that after I've walked them through this process for them to find out what is most aligning to them. So if you're having a hard time finding that answer, you probably have a lot of emotion tied into it, right? If you're having a hard time being like, should I reach out to this person or not? Most of the time you're in turmoil because you've got a lot of emotion riding behind it. Right? It's totally fine. Or you've heard that answer, like you already kind of know the answer secretly deep down, but you have a lot of mind drama that's holding you back from executing that answer. And that's okay. That's totally normal. But I'm going to show you in today's episode how to move through that so you know you're doing what's right for you. And here's the thing. If you do what's right for you, that doesn't mean it always ends up rainbows and daisies. I think a lot of times we think that's going to be the case. But sometimes what's right for you is another hardcore lesson or a hard truth or a hard conversation. And it doesn't feel good, but maybe perhaps that's what you needed. So I just want to mention that caveat because I think a lot of times we're like, oh, well, if I do what's aligned to me, it's always going to feel great. It's going to be rainbows and daisies. But sometimes our inner voice, our inner instinct, that inner wisdom, I call it the inner alien, is leading us towards lessons that we need to learn that do not feel great. So here's what you're going to do. The first step that I want you to take is walk through best case scenario. And remember, when you're doing this whole process, that the only thing you're in control of is you. A lot of times when I ask this question of my students, they start listing off how their ex acts perfectly and talks to them nicely. And that's not what I'm asking here in terms of best case scenario. We don't have control over what your ex does or says. So best case scenario for you, right? And we're looking at 3 different options at least. You might have multiple options, right? But I see, option number 1 is if I reach out to my ex, what is the best case scenario for me? How do I think? How do I feel? How do I act no matter what my ex does or says back? Okay. The second option would be if I don't reach out to my ex, what is the best case scenario for me? right? How do I feel, think, act, no matter what happens? And then the third one is I always ask my students, what is the third option you're not seeing? A third possibility you haven't yet thought of? And I always ask this, and my students always come up with a third option that they didn't even realize was available. And so definitely do that for yourself. And again, ask yourself, what's the best case scenario for me? How would I be thinking, feeling, and acting? Okay. Once you gather all that information around best case scenario, because many of you are looking at worst case scenario that just adds fear, we're going to ask this second question. Here's the second thing you've got to do. You've got to ask, after you move through all of the different best case scenarios, you're going to ask yourself, if I were living my bigger and better life, get descriptive about what this looks like for you, right? It might look different for you, but for me, right, it was, if I were living my bigger and better life with my husband on the beach and our 2 kids, with my 4 books that I've written and the successful podcast, would I be reaching out to my ex over this? Why or why not? Provides so much clarity, y'all. So much clarity. Now, the third step that I want to add is an optional step. So if you like inner voice work or human design and you're familiar with that, I always love to ask my clients to connect with their inner voice or their authority within human design and ask, how do you see reaching out or not reaching out? Inner voice, should I reach out? Inner voice, do I need to even decide right now? Is this a decision that needs to be made right now? Inner voice, will I know when I should reach out? Okay. Now, steps 1, 2, and optional step 3 were all information gathering. There was no conclusions that we had to draw. We just were really looking at gathering neutral information from ourselves to explore the topic a little bit more. So once we've gathered all that information, your step 4 is really to form a conclusion based off of everything that you've gathered. So once you have all of the things that you explored here, that conclusion should come forward for you pretty naturally. And that conclusion doesn't mean you're going to feel great about it. But if you know and you can see the conclusion and then just also recognize oh, I have fear or resistance or hesitancy towards implementing the conclusion, that is completely fine. We just need the clarity around what's the authentic part for me. And then we can look at all of the mind gunk and all of the drama or the fear behind executing and implementing it, whether it's reaching out or not reaching out or unknown third option. Okay. So then step 5, so again, step 1, 2, and 3 is information gathering. Step 4 is, letting the conclusion come forward. And it's okay if there's fear or doubt or anything, allow that to come forward and know that we're going to address the fear, doubt, and worry, anything that comes up. So then step 5 is allowing that conclusion to be, once it's made, cleaning up any of the mind drama that came up with realizing and recognizing that conclusion. What am I feeling about this conclusion or insight? Why am I feeling that way? What thoughts are making me feel that way? And begin to question them. The other day I was coaching a client on this very specific thing of, should I reach out to my ex or not? We gathered the information. She formed her conclusion, which was to reach out to her ex to say happy birthday. And she had a lot of drama about it. She had put forward a lot of effort to get to neutrality and indifference. And she was worried that if I say happy birthday, the mind drama was, I'm going to feel rejected or I'll get rejected. And we had to go through and question that. Is it possible that I'm wrong? Of course. We have no idea. Who am I without that thought? Well, I'm just more authentically myself and lighter. What is it costing me to believe that thought? Well, it was costing her being herself and following through on what was right for her. Right? And then we dove into how she doesn't have to be afraid of feeling rejected because she knows exactly how to feel rejected and move through that. So after doing all this work to get clear about this for you, it is so helpful to teach you how to make decisions for you rather than, based on what other people say or think about you, because this is a process you can utilize to make any sort of decision. Not only, should I reach out to my ex or not, but you'll be able to use this decision-making tool or process in a lot of different ways. Now, as you execute your conclusion, you will have thoughts and feelings, and that's okay because we know that thoughts create feelings and we know how to process emotion. If you want a refresher, listen to all of the episodes before this talking about how thoughts create feelings and how to process emotion, or better yet, get yourself into the Get Over Your Ex course, and I teach you exactly how to do all of that and implement it in your life in a much deeper way. But just know that you're supported. Know that you have control. Just because you find a conclusion that scares you doesn't mean that there's something wrong. All right, my brave hearts, I love you so much. That's what I have for you today. I'd love to hear how this process has worked for you. Feel free to share it with me on Instagram at Breakup Coach Dorothy. I love hanging out there with you all. When this airs, I may be on maternity leave, but I will be checking in every once in a while. So I love you each dearly, and I will talk to you next time.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.